I'd like to also give a very quick overview of our delegation here for the past 2.5 days. We were here to attend the review, the UN review of Vietnam's implementation of ICCPR, and I just spoke at the UN Human Rights Council interactive dialogue with the UN Special Rapporteur on minority issues. Our delegation was kind of large this year here. About over 30 people participated. They came from different countries, representing different ethnic minorities and Vietnamese, as well as coming from different religions. We have already scheduled or have met about 20 officials from the UN and permanent missions, and also a handful of international organizations based in Geneva to explore opportunities for long-term collaboration. So today we focus mainly on minority issues, indigenous people, especially the statelessness that has affected thousands upon thousands of Hmong and Montagnard Christians. So let us get started. Welcome to this briefing. I'd like to start with Pastor Vàng Chí Minh, himself a Hmong Christian and now a pastor. He spent 9 years in prison. His father and he himself had to escape from their village and took refuge in the jungle. His father died in the jungle, and then he himself got caught later, sentenced to 9 years in prison. After release from prison, he couldn't stay in Vietnam. He escaped to Thailand in 2005, and then he got recognized as a refugee and he resettled in Minnesota now. And he has since been going back and forth to the region, not only Thailand but also Vietnam, Myanmar, China, Laos, to help other Hmong Christians that have been persecuted. With that, I would introduce to you Hmong Pastor Joseph Lam.
Yeah, thank you so much for everyone. My name is Vàng Chí Minh. I live in Mông in Vietnam, North Vietnam. My place living in the Hà Giang province. Since 1989, we are the Christian in North Vietnam. A lot of persecution for the government of Vietnam. After that, my dad died in the Hà Giang province. I cannot live in Hà Giang. I had to bring my family go to Dien Bien Phu since 1995. Then 1996, they told the police take me go to jail until 2004. Then run out of jail. In 2005, I had to run out of the country to see a refugee in Thailand. In 2007, they sent me to the United States. Now I live in Minnesota. The reason today we come here, we know in Vietnam the issue inside the country for the freedom of religion is a very, very problem for the minority people. The Vietnam government always say everything is a freedom in Vietnam, but inside the country is no freedom for the minority people. Right now, all the Hmong 2011, there are a lot of persecution, take all the Hmong land and broken Hmong house, take the Hmong ground out, everything. The Hmong cannot live in the country. The Hmong Vietnam run to Burma. Now in Burma, about 600 family houses run to Burma. A lot run to Laos, living in Laos. They run to Thailand and run to China. Now the Hmongs have run out any country close to Vietnam because they have no money, no anything to go anywhere to care for their life. They just run out of the country because of persecution. I want to talk to everyone, organization, to know about the more issue. For my English, not so good. I try to speak in Vietnamese, maybe translate for some English for everyone. Tức là hiện nay thì chúng tôi là nằm một cái tình trạng rất là khó khăn, không thể, chúng tôi không biết phải như thế nào với những người ở trong nước họ mới sống được ở trong nước, bởi vì bây giờ mất đất đai họ tìm mọi cách để ngăn chặn người Mông để thu đất đai mà thu nhà cửa, và cái đó là một cái điều rất là khó cho bây giờ, mà cả miền Bắc và miền Nam người Mông họ toàn dùng cái nhựa, kể với là có với Mông Tây Nha hoàn toàn đi theo cái đó.
Our people, the Hmong people in Vietnam are facing a very difficult situation right now. We don't know how to help them to get out of the situation because their land have been confiscated. They have no more means of livelihood. And that happens to Hmong in the northwestern region of Vietnam as well as in the central highlands area of Vietnam. And our fellow Christians, the Montagnards, in central highlands are facing a similar situation.
Một điều chúng tôi rất là buồn là chúng tôi chỉ có theo đạo Tin lành giúp đức tin của chúng tôi bằng thôi, nhưng mà chính phủ Việt Nam nó đàn áp đến mức độ mà họ thu hộ tịch hộ khẩu. Hiện nay nhiều gia đình người Mông, hàng ngàn người ở trong nước không có hộ tịch hộ khẩu, không có chứng minh thư. Cái điều đó là một cái điều đó, thu hộ tịch hộ khẩu trên 20 năm thì con cháu mà cả bố mẹ cũng không được đi học, mà con cháu cũng không được đi học. Cái điều đó là một cái điều chúng tôi rất là buồn, không biết làm sao được.
What saddens and distresses us most is that just because we convert ourselves to Christianity, the government has decided to take away all of our documents, the household registration, the citizenship ID cards, and because of that, we are not considered as citizens, and our children are not considered as citizens. Our children cannot go to school, we cannot go to school. We couldn't go to school, our children can't go to school now.
Tôi chỉ lấy một cái ví dụ của một cái bản, tức là tiểu khu 179 ở miền Nam, là cái khu đó là hơn 100 hộ, là đã sống vào cái bản đó được 17 năm mà không có hộ tịch hộ khẩu, mà con cháu không được đi học, mà nhà cửa ổn định hết rồi.
I just take one example for illustration. And that is the subsector 179. There's about almost 100 households of Hmong Christians living there for the past 17 years. None of them has household registration. None of them has any documents.
Mà những cái bản đó là họ tập trung để viết giấy viết giấy đề nghị cho chính phủ từ xã đến huyện, huyện đến tỉnh và từ tỉnh đến trung ương, 4 lần đến trung ương mà chính phủ Việt Nam họ
So for the past 17 years, they have submitted repeatedly petitions to the local government, the district government, the provincial government, and the central government, but no action has been taken.
2018, chính phủ Việt Nam họ ra một cái quyết định mà phải đổi những bản đó ra hết, mà phải thu cái đất đó để làm không biết họ dùng cái đất đó để làm gì, nhưng mà họ phải chiến cái đất đó, mà chiến cả cái bản đó, mà cà phê này, hạt tiêu này, điều này, cái trái cây rất là lớn, mà cả cái khu đó mà họ phải chiến hết, mà bây giờ tôi về làm sao?
Now these stateless families have spent 17 years to cultivate that land, and just last year the government of Vietnam decided to expropriate the land. So they have all these issued an order. Now all these families don't know where to go and how to continue to support themselves.
And not this không phải là chỉ cái bản đó. Trong vòng 1 năm đây là tôi được nhận được cái họ viết báo cáo cho tôi là hơn 1.100 hộ gia đình không có hộ tịch hộ khẩu, không có chứng minh thư. Trong số hộ khẩu là hơn 5.000 là ở phía Tây Nguyên là hoàn toàn bị như vậy.
And over the past year alone, I have received information from a number of communes, totaling over 1,100 households that are stateless, and that would amount to over 5,000 individuals.
Mà gần đó là có những người Tây Nguyên là hình như người thưởng cũng vì như vậy. Tôi nhận được cái họ báo cho tôi là hơn 1.000 hộ, họ cũng là mất quốc tịch Việt Nam mà trở thành người vô quốc ở trong nước.
And in the proximity of these stateless Hmong communities, I also received information from the Montagnard communities and data of about over 1,000 families of Montagnard were also in the situation of being stateless.
Vì vậy mà tôi cũng muốn nhờ các tổ chức kêu gọi quốc tế để can thiệp với chính phủ Việt Nam phải tôn trọng theo luật pháp của Việt Nam đã ban hành ra, để tôn trọng quyền của công dân và làm cái giấy đó cho công dân để trở thành một công dân chủ nước. Bởi vì là chúng tôi là từ trước đến nay chúng tôi là quốc tịch Việt Nam, chỉ có mà chúng tôi theo đạo Tin Lành mà chúng tôi phải mất toàn bộ quyền công dân Việt Nam trở thành một vô quốc gia trong nước.
So we are here to ask the international community to intervene on our behalf, to pressure the Vietnamese government to consider us and treat us as any other Vietnamese citizen. We issue citizenship recommendation to us. We had Vietnamese citizenship before, but only since we converted ourselves into Christianity, we are no longer treated as Vietnamese citizens, and therefore denied all the benefits of Vietnamese citizens.
Và chúng tôi cũng muốn nhờ Liên Hiệp Quốc để can thiệp chính phủ Việt Nam phải tôn trọng công ước của Liên Hiệp Quốc. Việt Nam đã ký trong công ước của Liên Hiệp Quốc. Cái điều đó là cái điều quan trọng. Việt Nam không tôn trọng cái điều công ước của Việt Nam đã ký.
And it's very important that the UN here and other countries ensure that the Vietnamese government comply with all its commitments under the UN treaties that it has already signed.
Mà sau đây tôi chỉ có phát biểu như vậy, nhưng mà tôi có vài tấn ảnh ở bên ngoài là con cháu còn đi học mà bị giết chết ở trong phòng công an các thứ, là tôi có hình ảnh. Nếu mà anh có thể muốn được nhiều information, có thể chụp hình, chụp ảnh về cái tấn hình của tôi bên ngoài.
Yeah, I don't have much time to share more about the situation of the Hmong people, the Hmong Christians, but I bring with me pictures for the exhibit out there. You can take picture of those photos, exhibits. They show evidence of Hmong Christians being tortured, some tortured to death, Hmong being detained, and Hmong children without education.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Van. Next would be Ms. Tương Nguyen. I'm sorry. I'd like to ask Michelle Nguyen first. She's the co-founder of the Coalition Against Torture in Vietnam.
Thank you, Dr. Tan. Thank you all for being here today at this event. Thank you for your kind concerns about the grave human rights situation in Vietnam. I hope that you find the information we are sharing with you today useful and can help you put into perspective the sufferings of the persecuted ethnic groups in Vietnam. Vietnam is a one-party state under strict ruling of the Communist Party of Vietnam, whose discriminatory policies toward ethnic minority groups cost them so much disadvantage and sufferings. They typically forced to live in isolation in their assigned resettlement localities. And those of Christian faith are pressured by the authority to renounce their faith. Government officials often refer to Christianity as the religion of Westerners, or more specifically, religion of the evil American. The authority forbid pastors from going to communities of the faithful to conduct worship services, and indigenous people are often prevented from traveling outside their forced resettlement zone or searching for new uncultivated land. Several ethnics were arrested, beaten up, imprisoned. Some died from lethal beatings or refused to renounce their faith or being suspected of not obeying the government's rule. Prisoners of ethnic origin often receive longer prison terms. They are frequently mistreated in prison. Their families are very poor, and most cannot afford prison visits. Many prisoners die from illness or malnutrition in prison or shortly after they have been released from prison. Their sufferings are typically unknown to the outside world. The only ways for us to get to know about such cases are through their pastor, like Pastor Van here, who travel extensively and try to spread the information about their persecutions, or from the activists within their communities who speak up for their people, and also from the former prisoner of conscience who were imprisoned in the same prison camp as those ethnic people. I was told about a case of a Christian who died in prison, but the prison official refused to release his body to his family for proper burial rites, because the prisoner has not served the entirety of his prison term. In another case, while the victim was imprisoned with a decade-long term, the village's police went to his house and repeatedly raped his wife and impregnated her. When the poor man heard about the news, he was so deeply hurt that he became deranged. Yet the authorities still did not provide him with mental care or release him for the care of his family. He remained behind bars under the cares of his fellow prisoners. The language barrier and remote locale where the group settle make it very challenging for human rights activists and civil societies like our organization to access information and collect data for research or to provide assistance. Emboldened by the isolation and the lack of public awareness, the authorities' treatment toward ethnic groups, especially minorities of Christian faith, are extremely cruel and inhuman. Many ethnic minorities were tortured. Several died in police custody. But not only the perpetrators were prosecuted, their victims were accused of breaking the laws. An example I want to mention today is Mã Tiểu Linh. He's a Hmong Christian. He was arrested on April 30th, 2017, while he was traveling, trying to take an acquaintance to seek medical care. He was arrested and accused of heroin possession. The following day, they notified his family that he was detained, and he died 5 days later. The police notified his family that he committed suicide by hanging, despite the fact that there were several dark purple bruises on his neck, his back, arm, thighs, and legs, having the appearance of torture. And I have one of the photos of Mã Tiểu Linh that I would like to show you to see if you can believe that this man here hanged himself, committed suicide. Look at all the injuries on his body. The victim family disagreed with the conclusion of the police, and they sought assistance from our organization VCAT in filing complaints about unjust death with various government agencies from the local level to the central level from May 2017 until January 2018. But the authority refused to address the complaint. Not only that, the police intensified the threats against the victim's family, fearful for their own safety. The family of 7 includes sons, wife, and their 2 small children, the uncle and cousins who helped her to file the complaint because she was illiterate. They all had to flee to Thailand in February 2018 to seek asylum. And I also have here a photo of Mã Tiểu Linh, widow, and 2 children. In another case, Hoàng Văn Ngài, who's also Hmong ethnic, he was a deacon who tried to preserve a church that the authority were trying to close. He was arbitrarily arrested and died 2 days later. His death was also ruled a suicide. On the morning of March 14, 2013, Ngai and his wife, his brother and sister-in-law went to work on the field just like usual. But then the police came to try to arrest the man. They managed to flee. The police turns around, capture the wives. The women were handcuffed, tied with ropes, and dragged to the police vehicle. They were taken to the police station and detained as hostages to force the two men to turn themselves in. Ngai and his brother, therefore, have to turn themselves in at the police station and arrested on March 15th. While they were in detention, Ngai's brother could hear the sound of violent beatings coming from his cell, his brother's cell, and later saw the police drag his limp body out of the cell. The police later announced that Ngai had committed suicide by putting his hand into an electric socket. The state media report that Ngai was arrested for destroying the forest. And I think I have a photo of Ngai here. If you can see all the injuries and burn marks, his bloody body, and he was said that he puts his hand in the electric socket and commits suicide. As Vietnam tried to present to the world a more positive image than in reality, so that the corrupted regime can continue to seek foreign aids, economic favors, and favorable trade agreements, it is now more than ever that developed and democratic countries can hold good leverage to influence Vietnam's domestic policies. We welcome the decision of EU countries to postpone the vote on EU-Vietnam Free Trade Agreement due to the lack of concrete progress on Vietnam's human rights records. So we call on you to help raise public awareness about the persecution and ill treatments of ethnic minority groups in Vietnam with the UN special procedures, the country missions, as well as your members of parliament, and advise them about the dismal human rights situation in Vietnam. Please speak up for the powerless who do not have a voice. They desperately need your help. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. The next two speakers will be Ms. Duyên Khu. She is with Association of Conservationists coming from the US. She will talk about land grab, which affects a lot of Christian communities and Buddhist communities as well. For the sake of time, may I ask that the next two speakers, that is Duyên Khu and Ms. Dong Nguyen, to keep it brief, to around 5 minutes each. Thank you.
Before I share my story, I would like to say thank you to all of you who spent quality time today to listen to the Vietnam story. I will go briefly. In the first week of 2019, the government of Dong Minh District, Ho Chi Minh City, mobilized hundreds of public security officers and demolition workers to destroy an entire Catholic community that had existed since 1954, and that in recent years served as century first at risk human rights defenders and victims of the government persecution. This community, popularly known as Vườn Rau Lộc Hưng, is Lộc Hưng Vegetable Garden. The community is part of the Vườn Rau Lộc Hưng parish, and most families in this community earn their living by growing vegetables that they sold at the local markets. Hundreds of police officers has destroyed totally 468 homes that belong to 159 families. And when that happened, children are not be able to go to school, family departed, separately, husband and wife, they cannot be together again because they have to share the rooms in the house from all the family members. The police detained about 10 persons who attempt to protect their homes. React to the public outcry, the government issued an official statement affirming that it's the policy The policy was not to destroy land, it's only to remove the structure that's illegal. However, the following day, the government cleared the land and posts on billboard indicated that almost like 5 acres of land has been rezoned for this new school zone complex. A month later, over 100 victims signed a letter to complain to the Criminal Investigation Division, Department of Public Security of Ho Chi Minh City, requesting an investigation into the forced eviction as well as the intimidation campaign in the following day of the site demolition for some unidentified individual. Lop Hung eviction victim and their lawyers submit a petition request to be received by a local authorized and their grievance address. Not only the local government official of Ho Chi Minh City ignored the petition, they also published incorrect information that the majority of Lop Hung residential had accepted government compensation or the assistance. Lop Hung Parish tried to gather a group of people to hold a press conference yesterday. Unfortunately, the Vietnamese government does not allow that to happen. They send people we call the red flag workers come and give the owner a hard time, so the people cannot hold the press conference yesterday. When we are sitting here in Vietnam, the Lop Hung Parish, they try to raise the voice, but they cannot because they have no human rights. So the conference got canceled. Determined to seek justice, some residents of Lop Hung lawyers went to Hanoi and meet with Central Season Reception Committee. Upon the return, the Lop Hung lawyers issued a press release including a communication from the committee request the local authority of the Ho Chi Minh City to receive the victims and address their complaints and grievances. It's called on the Ho Chi Minh authorities to act accordingly to the law to address citizens' complaints and the Ho Chi Minh Department of the Public Security to start their investigation of unlawful acts that caused material and emotional damage to hundreds of Lop Hung victims. It also called on the media inside and outside of Vietnam, social media networks to objectively broadcast and share accurate information about the Lop Hung Vegetable Garden incidents. It thanks to their supporters for the materials and spiritual support. Thank you very much.
And thank you. Now I'd like to ask Ms. Dong Nguyen to very quickly present her experts' opinions about the consequence of torture on victims. And we are talking about a lot of victims here of police violence, and beatings, and torture. Thank you. Ms. Dong Nguyen is with the Stitching Vietnam Human Rights Foundation, and she's professionally also a mental health counselor.
Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to tell something about my expertise. The Vietnam Human Rights Foundation was founded 3 years ago after sea disaster Formosa. Because I became a psychosocial therapist, I saw many people were beaten by the police in plain clothes. So I thought there must be something to do about that, because otherwise the people will get PTSD, some kind of stress disease. I have many veterans, Dutch veterans, who came back from a mission on Lebanon or Afghanistan, and they became, they get a severe disease. That's why I thought for the Vietnamese people, I have to do something. So that's why. I'd like to tell you about something I have in my heart. I hope to do something for them. to cure them from disorders that they get from tortures. I don't know if you have have seen the photographs. They have been beaten after demonstration, even peaceful demonstration like sit-in. They were put in handcuff and put in jail without trial. After that, after some time, I have to receive the news that they get mad, and that's why I think we have to do something to end this injustice for these people.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nguyen. So now let's open this for questions and answers. If you have questions.
I can tell something about not only the prisoners are the victims of these injustice, but also the wives and the children. As we know, PTSD is not stopped by the first generation, but the second generation, the children or their grandchildren will be the same. It's not biological, but by mentally. They can give to other generation.
Now, Mr. Chi.
Yeah, I would like to ask you about, there was a victim, her name is, she's from Vườn Rau Khân, her name is Bảo Huy. She get captured and get tortured. Do you know more about that? Can you tell me more about that, please?
Yes. Very unfortunately, after the government took out, demolished all the homes of this almost all Catholic community that has been in existence for the past 65 years, they no longer allow the residents to come back, even to collect their furniture and their belongings. So they raise everything, and even though they claim that this is not expropriation of land, so the land still belongs to the residents, but they are no longer allowed to come back. So Ms. Bảo Quyên tried to come back, and they arrested her, detained her, and there's report of her being beaten by the police. But she got released after several hours of detention, and we are following that, monitoring that very closely. Thank you. Yes.
You also mentioned people fleeing to different countries, especially Pastor Wang. I was wondering if you could explain how is the situation for refugees in other countries, for the Hmong and Montagnard? How is their status and their situation?
For the Hmong, right now in Bangkok, the Hmong can see a refugee in Bangkok about 100, I think 140 more families. Total people is 1,280 people living in Bangkok. Still a long time, about 8 years right now. They don't have any way to go. They're still in Bangkok. There's a lot of room to see refugee in Bangkok. It's family Hmong cannot be a refugee, but they run ongoing jungle in Thailand, in Laos, Myanmar, in China. They are working, they're living in jungle right now. Since November 2018, I just went to Burma, looking at Hmong people in Burma. It's on 600 families in Burma. They don't have house. They just live in jungle. They run, living 1 week here, had to move everywhere in the jungle because they don't have the document anything. If the government Burma can see it, they can take send it to Vietnam. I know that time not only me, and my one brother Vietnamese, my brother is Giang Bung Nguyen. He's 70 years in go with me. He go interview all the people, the children. You want to go back Vietnam or you have to stay here. Everyone cry because the children no school. They want to miss Vietnam. They want to go back to Vietnam. But all the people is cry we cannot go because we have to go to job. That's why it's very difficult for the non-Vietnam right now refugee. The situation for the Hmong Vietnam is not every day is happening new. Like this one for Sông Á Khoa and Dien Bien Phu, just last month. Last month he get medicine for this guy and he go to jail, just only Christian people. But Vietnam government Vietnam who he said, oh you have phá rừng, họ quay một cái tội đó. Thì sau đây
He literally founding trees.
But it's not going to be because he already got a prescription about 2 years later. Now he almost died in 2000. I think the police get something for eat one night and eat the full police get for him. 3 days he had tức là thuốc độc muốn như là họ cho cái gì ăn xong là ngứa cả.
Yeah, his family members suspected that he had been poisoned.
Yeah, and now still in jail. And last month, or this year, we had someone outside the country go visit his family, and the police see I think the police control the family. They see the one people from America go visit the family. Right now, so do very difficult for his wife. Every 3 days had to go meet police again. You have to tell me this guy where come from. Why you have to go meet him? Every day do this one family. And then I want to talk and share one issue. This is for the children in the South Vietnam Central Highland. There's no school. A lot of children, about thousand children, no, and no medication, no probably for the government to support everything, and then not able. It's a Sông Á Khoa in the beautiful. This guy. Last year he taught in the outside refugee because of good Christian.
How many your address? Because they said that some people did 8 years in Thailand. Have they been evacuated?
Yeah, I want to talk more about the people living, Hmong people, Hmong Thai people, refugee in Thailand right now. It's very difficult because the UN in Thailand, they don't have anything to support for the refugee people. They have to go outside to find a way to find some money to support the family. And the government Thai and the police, they're always looking for the people no document in Thailand to take in jail. It's very difficult for the refugee in Thailand right now. And a lot of Hmong in Thailand and Hmong in Thailand live together. It's very difficult with small room. It's 8 people, 10 people that live one small room. And no food, sometimes no food. Some months no money to pay the rent. It's very difficult. I want to share for the way everyone in UN to help the people to refugee in Thailand and Hmong and Hmong and even Vietnamese people is alive still refugee there. There are a lot of people that don't have the document to tức là không được cái giấy của tị nạn.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. BPS, that's our organization.
Yeah.
We have a legal clinic in Thailand. We have lawyers there. And the vast majority of Hmong Christians who fled to Thailand have been denied refugee status by the UNHCR. I think the main reason is that few outside of Vietnam are aware of the persecution going on, that the Hmong Christians have been subjected to inside Vietnam. There's very little information that could leak out until recently. So we just published a few days ago a comprehensive report on statelessness among the Hmong and the Montagnard Christians. They're stateless because they have been denied of the most basic rights of citizens. They are not recognized as citizens. There's no documentation. Their citizenship ID got revoked. Their house registration, which is critical in Vietnam to prove that you're a resident of Vietnam, got revoked. So they have no paperwork at all. And when they presented those facts to the UNHCR, the adjudicator on the UNHCR couldn't link that to religious persecution at all. So we had to compile statistics, data, and analyze it and then present an overall picture, hopefully to help the Indonesians understand the situation, the real situation going on in Vietnam.
Yeah. One thing I want to share more about Marshal Song, and he totally died in the police station in the Dala. Now the family has to move in refugee in Thailand. There's no food, no everything, nobody to support. That's very important for the Marshal Song woman until his died. They be crazy, don't know anything, cannot tell anything, and 2 children. Even the Huang Wangai family is the same thing. Refugee in Thailand about 5 years right now. It's a very difficult time. I want to.
Yeah, thank you about that. And this relates to Mr. Tung Nguyen's presentation. These victims of atrocities usually suffer major depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. And usually that would result in short-term memory loss. So they cannot remember anything, what happened to them. And that poses a challenge for them to articulate their claims during the interview with UNHCR. So we did bring some mental health professionals to interview the wife of Marshal Song in Thailand. She couldn't remember anything about what happened to her family, to her husband, no clue. So what we had to do was to have an assessment by professional and submit that assessment along with her claims. Her claim was almost nothing because they couldn't remember anything. And that is the challenge for many of the victims who have fled the country to seek asylum and protection in Thailand.
And one thing for my family, my older brother and my younger sister cannot living in Vietnam because I run outside and go to US. The government Vietnam every day torture for my family. Every day got the document to bring my family. Why your brother come back? Why your brother say everything do until my family cannot live in Vietnam, lost of the land, had to move north to south, move south to north, cannot live in. Now I go to 10 years now. Last year I said you don't have any place to live. You have to go to Thailand to see a refugee Thailand because you don't have a place to live. Right now my family is in Thailand. My brother, my younger sister, about 6 families is still in Thailand. This situation is not longer. It's yesterday. I just saw one thing for yesterday. This video is from police tape from yesterday.
Thank you.
This for the police persecution for the church. The church is Nghệ An province. Three leaders go to jail yesterday. I just got the information, still not finished for everyone to look at. Yeah.
Yes, I have to apologize.
Yeah.
Because I see that Nadu is coming in to use this room here. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Jubilee Campaign for helping us to secure this room. But we can continue the conversation outside. Also, for those who want to find out more about the situation affecting the different religious groups in Vietnam, please pick up this package.
Yeah.
Yes. I pass this down. There are many other copies of this package. And to conclude, I'd like to thank all the speakers, thank all the guests here coming to join us. Vietnam has won the propaganda war during the war and after the war, and they are very effective in controlling the media and information, stopping it from getting out of the country. That's why there's very little information on country conditions related to the Hmong, the Montagnard, and many other persecuted religious communities. That's why we are here today, and we hope that you are here, those who are here who can spread the words out. Please do. Thank you very much.